Hi, I'm Jess, not to be mistaken with Jeff, taller, less lipstick. I'm on Whiteboard Friday today, and I'm going to talk about how do we know how unequal we are. Inequality, we hear it a lot, it's a bit of a buzzword. What does it really mean? When we talk about inequality in terms of income and wealth and opportunity, what we really care about is inequality of opportunity. Does everybody in this country, no matter where they're born, to what circumstance, get a fair go at realising their potential and participating? So how do we measure that? Well, we don't really measure inequality of opportunity. What we measure instead is the resources coming into various households and how unequal the resources in those households are. So let's talk about how we measure household resources in New Zealand and in fact internationally. Let's start with an example. This is Sally and her family. They're microchipped, declawed, non-tui catching cat. The first thing we want to ask about Sally's family and household is how much money's coming in. What's the cash? Who's earning what? What's taxable? So what can we see in their income? And from this, we get the median household income. And from Sally's household, and in fact all the other households that have provided this information, we line up every household. Whoops, that house has been in an earthquake. Every household in the country from the lowest to the highest income, and we take the dead centre. Half of everybody earns more, half of everybody earns less. What we also ask Sally and her family is about the stuff they can buy and the things they can do. The kind of questions we ask are, can you afford protein every second day? We don't ask the cat that. Does everybody have 2 pairs of shoes? Can you afford to go on an overseas? Actually, I think it's just generally on a holiday. And if you had a debt of $500, could you service it without borrowing? That kind of thing. And we call that the standard of living. And we've got a few different measures for that. So we know absolutely from this how households are doing, but what we want to know is how everybody is doing in terms of everybody else. We want to measure the inequality or the equality between households. Now, we do that in a few different ways. The first one you'll hear quite frequently is the Gini, and an Italian economist in the 1930s, good fascist he was too, came up with the Gini measure. And we hear a coefficient cited for the Gini. When we hear something close to 0, it means there's perfect equality or distribution of income across society. 20% of people earn 20% of the money, 50% of people earn 50% of the money. The closer we get to 1, the more unequal the distribution is, because 1 means that 1 person gets all of the money. So that's about the distribution and the inequality of the distribution. We've also got a couple of other measures, the unimaginatively named P8020, and that measures the gap in our income. So how big is the gap of incomes between the top groups and the bottom income groups? And then we also have something called the income share, where we look at what share of the income as a ratio do the top earners have compared to the bottom. So we might say the top 10% earn 5.5 times the income of the bottom 10%. There are some other measures as well that we use. None of them are perfect. Now, one of the problems that we have in New Zealand is we talk primarily about inequality. We're talking about income. Now, what's the problem with that? Well, if we look at Sally's household again, it's like we've had a wee squinty through, excuse me, the keyhole, tried to say what's in the kitchen cupboards and compare what's in the kitchen cupboards with everybody else as well. Because the thing about households is it's more than just money that makes up the resources in a household. The other types of things that determine how a household is doing are things like debt. Is somebody servicing a finance debt from when they were a teenager, which is now at a squillion %? We don't know about the community resources which they're drawing upon, or indeed, are they a member of a church and they tithe? We don't know about the family resources. Is Sally got a sister who looks after the 2 kids and therefore frees them up from paying expensive childcare fees? We don't know about the health in the family. Is the mother-in-law who lives with them ill and needing care from Sally, who now has to work part-time. We don't know about their living choices. So for example, we might know from the standard of living that they don't have a car, but we don't know why they don't have a car. Is it choice or money? And most importantly, we don't know about the assets. Are Sally, Sam and her family living in a $1.2 million mortgage-free house in Mount Victoria, or are they in Porirua and paid rental accommodation? We don't know about any land they own. We don't know about any trusts which they have. And why do we care about these things if we care about inequality of opportunity? Because they equal capital. And capital, in a wider sense of the word, confers opportunity. When I'm talking about capital, I'm talking about social capital, the networks that you get. I'm talking about human capital, the education that you have and the skills that you can get from that. And I'm talking about financial capital. All of these things give people opportunity. If this is our ladder of realised potential, then opportunity allows us to start higher on that. Without this social, human, financial capital, we're having a tough go even getting it out of the shed. So what's the take-home messages of this? Well, inequality of opportunity is really important. We measure income inequality, but that's only a very small part of the resources which determine the capital which gives us opportunity. Wealth really matters too, and rather importantly, internationally we do a much better job of measuring that wealth. Because without the measurement of it, we don't know if there's an imbalance in opportunity. We don't know what the impact of that is, and we certainly don't know how we can steer ourselves out of that imbalance. So that's what I've talked about today, and next week what we'll talk about is what we currently know within the limitations of these measures about household incomes in New Zealand and our inequality of income.